What's up, guys? Chris Teresi here, professional sports bettor, founder of WeCoverSpreads.com. Here to give you guys the very big, get your pens and pads and whatever ready. A lot of moves today in this basketball marketplace. Longest, biggest market report you probably have in a while. Um, First things first, though, if you want to get my Wednesday All Access Pass, definitely going to have some action in both pro and college basketball. We're on a 41 and 20 and 1. That's a 67% run the last 17 days. 41 wins, 20 losses in a push. 23 and 10 college basketball run, 70% winners, and grinding out 55% winners in NBA year to date. So, if you guys want, you could get that up on the site. And I guess we'll get right into this thing because there's a lot to talk about. So, as far as locally here, the Knicks caught believers again, and that's the way the betting public works. You know, the Knicks they finally had a blowout game. They are in almost every single parlay. Knicks are all over the place in parlays. Very exploited with Philly. Also, Knicks and Philly are a very popular parlay with anti-New Jersey money and pro-Knicks money in the local New York City betting scene. The Miami Heat are in a lot of parlays. The Oklahoma City Thunder are one-sided in a lot of parlays. The Houston Rockets. So, books are, they're exposed a little bit, but as you can see, there's a lot of money, a lot heavy volume day today. A lot of books seeing a lot of money, and from what I'm hearing, the busiest basketball day that they've seen all season long in pro and college, and even recreational money's up. So it's a good thing for books. I guess it's maybe a good sign about the economy. Maybe, who knows? But anyway, we'll go here. That right there, those teams I just named are pretty much your one-sided books, pain in the ass plays that I always like to talk about. But we'll go. We've seen Washington did see some support, early sharp support from 5.5, bet up to the key number 7. The Bulls they were taken at 8.5 up to 9. Interesting to see if that's a head fake. If we see some buyback on the Pacers at 9 before tip off. Milwaukee they scooped up to 4.5 with the Bucks. They scooped up 6 with the Timberwolves. They took the Lakers and Warriors both at 3. It's moved up to 3.5. Interesting to see what happens with those as they get closer to kickoff. They took the Raptors at 11 and moved it down to 10. The Nets Sixers under open 194, bet down to 191.5. Seen quite a bit of sharp action. Pacers Bulls open 184, was bet up to 187.5 with some over support. Toronto Utah open 186, was bet up to 188 with some support for the over. So that pretty much wraps up, the NBA market right there. But as we get into this college market, there's a lot of parlay action today tied in with NBA and all sorts of stuff to talk about. And these are the most one-sided games that books are saying is going to be a pain in the ass, that they'll be rooting the other side. They're getting a lot of one-sided action. Some of these games, as you're going to hear in the next group, that is some sharp money coming in on the other side, so it kind of bails them out, but some of them they're not. So we'll start it off. You got George Mason in there. One-sided game, a lot of parlays. VCU, as you see, just betting against bad teams. St. Bonaventure, Southern Miss, Xavier, Old Dominion, Temple, Missouri, Kansas State, UNLV, and Creighton, all very popular public plays, recreational better plays in parlays today. Books will be rooting the other side in many of those games right there. Here's the early sharp move. Now, when I say these sharp moves, one, I don't co-sign these. These aren't my plays or nothing. This is just from a local source of mine. I like to make this clear every day, and do your own homework as always. But and this can change from now between tip-off, because we record this earlier in the afternoon, so still a few hours between now and tip-off. But it gives you a basic idea of how things shifted. Overnight, early morning, and early afternoon here in the local New York betting scene. St. John's did see some local cash here. They opened at 8, that got scooped up, went down to 7.5. 7.5 didn't disappear yet, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Louisville did see some sharp money. We've seen St. Louis open at 3. They were bet down to 2. Saw some sharp money. Western Michigan saw some sharp money. George Washington saw some sharp money. Northern Illinois saw some sharp money. Indiana State saw some sharp money. South Carolina saw some sharp money. Auburn saw some sharp money, and Colorado State saw some sharp money, all on sides. Now, as far as totals go, Villanova, Louisville opened 127.5, was bet up to 131.5 with some support for the over. Loyola Chicago, Detroit opened 124.5 and was bet up to 126.5 with some support for the over. Central Michigan, Bowling Green opened 132, bet down to 129 with some support for the under. Virginia Tech, BYU open 139.5, bet up to 142 with some support for the over. LSU Mississippi State open 131, bet up to 133 with some support for the over. Seton Hall Notre Dame open 130, bet down to 128 with some support for the under. Rice Memphis open 137.5, bet down to 134 with some support for the under. Duke Maryland open 151, bet down to 149 with some support for the under. And Colorado State New Mexico open 139, bet down to 136 with some support for the under. A lot of plays right there, a lot of games you guys could circle, and maybe you already have circled, you could trigger them, and that's it. That's a lot of information right there. A lot different than yesterday's market report, but hopefully you guys can utilize all that information, and cash out some winners today. All right, fellas, I'm signing off, and hopefully you have a good day.